watching this, you already know who I am, but my name is Monsef. I own the AdminTuning tuning company, so we do UpRev and EcuTech for Nissan and Infiniti. This is mainly what we work on. Devin's got me a lot of questions, so I'm gonna go through them and see what we can answer right now. First one: are you ever nervous when tuning a car? If so, what does it feel like for you? After tuning this many cars, I think like the ECU is basically a calculator. So as long as you have like a good understanding of what each modification does, you can pretty much adjust everything and get it pretty close right out of the box. So I never get like nervous. There's some times where I have like a little bit of insecurity with the car if it's like a different combo, and then we gotta, take a little bit more time with it. But where it's like really big power or something where you have to exercise a lot of torque limiting, then yeah, we'd have to. It's just being a little bit more careful and taking a little bit more time. All right, cool. So next question. So Kenny asked how to make 350 wheel horsepower. Only for Kenny though. So Kenny, your car already made 336. All you need is long tube headers and nice weather, and you're there. So that's all you got to do. What is the highest number you've tuned with full bolt-ons? If it's an unopened motor, the highest is probably 376 wheel horsepower SAE. So that's full bolt-ons on a stock engine with M5 unopened motor. If you change the correction to STD, it's like 383 or some shit like that. So that's pretty much the highest, and that's all with like cheap ass shit too. That's like 3-inch intakes, homemade, OBX headers, ISR catback. There's a video on my YouTube channel, you can check it out. Next one: how did Brienne's Q50 make 350 wheel horsepower with drop-in, and other VQs don't make that with 3-inch intakes? A lot of it has to do with that car being a Q50. I've heard some rumors about the 14 plus motors having better cylinder heads. I'm not exactly sure on that yet, but one thing I do know, and why Q50s, the 3.7 Q50s always make a little bit more power, is the gear ratio is different. So the final drive gear ratio is a little bit taller, so they wind out fourth to a higher speed, and a lot of the times that'll make the dyno give you a higher number. Also, the way they design the stock airboxes is way different from like a 370Z. So usually if you have like a 370 or a G37, the final drive gear is a little bit more aggressive, it's shorter, and that'll kind of lowball your dyno number a little bit. How long did it take for Monsef to get proficient at tuning? High Mile Racer asked this question. I think I've been doing tuning like full time for like the last 3 years. I think during that time, I would say maybe like 4 or 5 years have been spent, or not 4 or 5 years, but that time probably like 2 years, like uninterrupted of just testing different stuff. Basically what we would do is we'll get a bunch of different cars with different combos, and we'll basically just start pretty much with like a stock ROM, and then just tune air fuel first, check gains, tune timing first, basically step ignition up like 1 to 2 degrees until it stops making power, and then step the cam phasing up and step the V-Vel up until eventually, we have basically a fully characterized tune. And we basically did that over and over again for a bunch of different combos to see what each car likes and doesn't like. So that was, I would say, like probably around 2 years worth of doing just that before I actually had a good solid standing point for pretty much every car out there. Next question. Not answering any oil questions on this, please, for the love of God. Here's a good one. What's the difference between SAE and STD on a dyno graph, and shouldn't wheel horsepower be determined by your 1-to-1 gear? So this is cool. SAE and STD are both weather correction factors. SAE corrects to 77 degrees ambient temperature. I don't remember the barometric pressure and humidity, but I know that's what the ambient temperature it corrects to. So basically whatever the weather station on the dyno gets for atmospheric conditions, it'll apply a multiplier based on how far away it is from those SAE conditions. So based on that, it'll give you an SAE correction. STD is just standard correction, which it works the same, it just corrects it to a lower temperature. So instead of 77 degrees, it's around 50. I believe it's like 65 degrees ambient temperature if I remember right. So what this does is it'll actually give you a slightly higher number. Not a crazy difference. On an all-motor car, it's like 7 to 10 horsepower depending on the weather and stuff. So that's the difference between the two correction factors. Just pay attention to what correction factor the shop uses, so you know. But it's nothing crazy. And then the horsepower 1-to-1 gear question. So this is kind of a funny question, because this is one of those things that if you're a conceptual tuner and you just sit online and sit on forums and do shit like that, and you're not actually like doing this kind of thing in real life, that's where you're gonna think, oh yeah, I'm gonna dyno it into the 1-to-1 gear. That's fine. But taking a 350Z HR in fifth, the 1-to-1 gear is fifth gear on a dyno, you're pulling it to like over 160 miles per hour on the dyno. So you have a lot more heat being generated, and the wheel speed is just insane. It's not practical to actually dyno it in fifth. The other thing...
Hold on, wait a minute.
So, the other thing about that, with the 1-to-1 shit, is that dynoing a 6-speed 370, a 6-speed 350 in fourth versus fifth, 99% of the time, it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference on load being measured by the ECU. It doesn't make a difference in power. The only thing that makes a difference is heat soak. So we dyno all the cars in fourth, and there's some loopholes with that. If it's got a 3.9 rear end or it's got a 408 rear end in it, we'll dyno it in fifth, just so we can get a more accurate load characterization. But that's kind of how that goes. Also, if it's a 5-speed automatic, you don't want to dyno it in the 1-to-1 gear. It's hella long. But yeah, that's enough of that. Highest horsepower VHR on 93 octane. I think the highest we had on 93 octane was 350 horsepower. Shout out Justin, slow G37S. That was his car. Had 3 bolt-ons, 2 intakes, ISR long tube headers, Tomei cap, automatic G37 on 93. What got you into tuning cars? This is a good question. So basically, what got me into tuning cars was mainly just the mystery of like why like Hondas and like little like shitty like import cars, or why they're fucking shit up like in the late 90s, early 2000s. What kind of bridged the gap between having like a stock 4-cylinder car and being able to beat V8s? So that was kind of the whole thing that got me into it and researching it. I didn't start by tuning Hondas. I actually started with tuning Nissans and then went back to Hondas. But Hondas are really kind of what I followed around at first to kind of like, you know, learn about tuning for boosted application and turbo kits and shit like that. Why is Rascal's G37 so slow? Damn, we don't know. It's because he had a single fuel pump. What's the best boost setup for a VQ that's reliable and powerful? Woo woo. Okay. Boosted performance, single turbo on a manual car is the best option, period. Safety really ends up depending on how you manage like temperature management and the tune, like how you manage torque and how much boost you want to run, really. If you're keeping it around like 450 foot-pounds, basically under 500 foot-pounds in a manual car, the car will last a long while. Once you start going over that, you kind of start to a disaster if you like to beat on it. Is the 5AT transmission capable of 500 wheel horsepower? Yeah, so with cooling and a flex plate, yeah, it is. As long as it's a G37, then yeah, it's pretty stout. We've done a few cars with the blower, the still in air-to-air, and they make over 500 through a 5-speed trans, and so no issues with like weird flare-ups or slips or anything like that. Just a good tune, good torque management, and you're set pretty much. This is only really for a blower car. If it's a turbo car, it really depends on how much torque you're going to ramp in and stuff like that. But for the most part, 500 wheel horsepower is okay on a 5-speed trans. What's the best brand and parts to use while upgrading? Check out my website. We have all the recommendations and links to everything. So that pretty much solves it. I've also made multiple videos on what the best bolt-ons for your car are. Just go to the website and see. You know what I'm saying?
Link in description.
Yeah, link in description, right? What cold air intake and exhaust would you recommend for a HR G35 besides admin intakes and singlets? So basically, what's the best shit besides the best shit? Just do like Z1 intakes and like arc or something, arc catback or something. What's a good supercharger? This is my boy right here. He made 340 something up here. Soho supercharger kit. That's it. And we actually sell them now, so just let me know if you want a quote or anything. We can get you that whole kit. They'll make about 500 on pump gas and 600 on E85. How much horsepower from the JWT C2 cams? Usually it's around 8 to 12. The VHR actually has a pretty gangster exhaust cam, so swapping the exhaust cams doesn't make a lot of difference. All of the horsepower records that I broke, or that we have set, I guess, basically anything over like 360 wheel. There's only been a couple of cars out of that lot that have had cams. Mostly we just like getting a really good bolt-on combo and then playing with the fuels afterwards, playing with different fuels. But yeah, that's all the questions on here.
So I got the Q&A with admin. About to edit all the stuff. This is the god right here. He's gonna give you the secrets to all the boosting and getting the high numbers.
All right, bro.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, for sure. Anytime.